Houston, we are go for launch in T-minus 30 seconds.
Every day I become a better operator, whatever it is, and it happens. Why? Because I don't take time off.
We are green on all engines, sir.
I only knew one way, and I knew the right way.
Initiating launch countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Booster ignition.
The Service Rocket Podcast has good liftoff. Welcome to the Service Rocket Podcast, hosted by Victor, the Rocket Man Rancour. Please enjoy the ride.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Service Rocket Podcast, episode number 6. I have an exciting guest on today. She is a badass in the industry. Obviously, the women need to have a big spot in this place, and Ellen, she's taking the reins and taking it by the drain, I guess we'll call it. So my guest today is Ellen Rohr with Zoom Drain. She's the president of Zoom Drain, of the whole Zoom Drain franchise. Ellen, welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Victor. I love you. I'm so happy to be here and visit with you. You represent everything I love about this industry, right? You're young, you're fearless. Like, let's go, go, go. You see the honor in it and the opportunity. I get inspired listening to you, and I'm just so excited to be on as a guest today.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to have you on, and this is something that I really care about a lot. And this, obviously, is bringing up the women in this industry, because there are some badass women, and especially for me as someone that has a woman general manager, woman COO, women are big in my business, because without them, I feel like most of us guys would fall apart, especially without your wives. And I think what you built is fantastic. So I kind of want to jump into the story, but first I kind of want to figure out, where did you start, right? Like, so most women in this industry, they're like, they want to know where to begin. How do I become a president of a large organization? How do I become the general manager? How do I become the COO? So let's kind of get a little bit of your beginning and kind of start there, and we'll work to where you're at now.
I married a plumber. That's how I got into it. When I was a kid, we called people. My dad wasn't handy. I didn't know anything about this. I thought you flushed the toilet, it was a miracle. You turned on the light. I never, electricity happens. The internet's. I never gave it a thought. And then I married my husband. His name is Hot Rod. So you got to marry a guy like that. What's your name, baby? He says Hot Rod. So I married him, and he's a plumber. So this is my introduction to his world and his friends. And they were just the coolest guys. They were real no nonsense. It works or it doesn't. No BS. Like, I just loved what they knew how to do, the way they thought. I had it opened up a world to me. I would ride along with him, and I'd go bring lunch to the jobs, and I'd just see these things go up. We did a lot of unprofitable new construction in the day, but what it taught me is drains and vents, and how the thing is built. I was just absolutely fascinated with it. And my career arc really started there, and has the thread through the whole thing, Victor, has been a deep love and appreciation of tradespeople. I don't know how to do any of it. If I picked up a wrench, I'd need channel locks, I'd need 2 hands. Like, I kind of have an idea of how the Tinker toys fit together from a conceptual standpoint, but I have no common sense and no skills that would translate to me actually riding in a truck and working on a job. But what I've done is ride along. And that's how I got to know like what they do and appreciate it so much.
I think it's kind of funny, because everybody thinks that you have to be a HVAC contractor, a plumber, and all this stuff to be able to run these organizations. And it's funny, because I've actually found that the guys or girls that are the most successful weren't that. They weren't the fix-it guy. They kind of they learned how to run a business and how to make money. Because I came from service champions with Leland Smith, and Leland doesn't know how to fix an air conditioner. Leland ain't going to go out and isn't going to go out until 10 o'clock at night and go fix somebody's AC in the middle of the night. But he's an accountant by trade. So he understood the numbers, then he understood people. So what is your background? Is your background in the number side, or you want to kind of explain, obviously you married a plumber, so that's great. You figured out a trade, you figured out something there, but there's obviously something behind that, right? Behind how you think and stuff like that. You want to kind of dive into that?
Sure. So what happened is, like, I was the classic struggling mom pop shop. I quit my real job, come work with my husband, and we're hating each other. I would say, we don't have enough money. And he would hear, I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. And I mean, I can feel the energy. Every time I say it, I can feel the energy of so many husband and wives looking at each other right now. Like, yeah, been there. So what happened is I am a Frank Blau disciple. Do you know who Frank Blau is? He's
Yes.
one. Yeah, okay. So he's like a legacy. He's an icon in the industry because with me and with so many others, and now multiple generations of people, he was the one. I wrote him a letter. He had put an article out in 1989. He wrote a column called "How Much Should a Contractor Charge?" And I read the article. And I wrote him a letter and said, please help me in the first paragraph, and then spent 2 pages telling him why he was wrong. Why I can't charge that in my neighborhood, and flat rate won't work, and my guys will never do it, and my customers are cheap, and blah, blah, wine, all that nonsense that I make fun of
Yeah.
people about. I did all that. And then Frank Blau called me, and the first words he said to me were, honey, you have your head so far, and he described where my head was. And I hung up on him crying. Like this was the beginning of our relationship. And the next day, Hot Rod's like, you got to call him back. We don't know what we're doing. Okay. So I'll call him back. And I did. And he took me under his wing like so many others. Like he's 93 now.
Wow.
And still chewing people out. God bless him. But he's the one who said it. He is. He's just so great. And he's the one who really painted the picture for those of us who decided to break out of this poverty-based industry and just charge what you needed to charge. And it took me a hot minute. I was scared. I finally hit the point where I was fine going out of business. I wasn't okay being broke, and I didn't want to live this life anymore. So I quintupled my prices and thought, there, see, won't work. And it just did. We got out of debt as fast. I mean, there's no substitution for being priced right. I don't care what your strategy is, what your plan is. If you're not charging enough money, you're not going to make it. You have to be premium priced. And I see you shaking your head like you're on the same page with this.
Well, obviously I didn't grow my business just magically by being the cheapest in the market, right? Like people are like, well, how do you grow your business so fast? Well, you have to price accordingly. And, I was just telling you, I just acquired a plumbing company about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes away from me, 44 years in business. They went from the dad and his son in the truck trying to fix everything forever. And then finally they were on time and materials all the way up until last year. Okay. So time and materials, not making any money. They started getting more into best practices, started charging a little bit more money over the last year, and they saw a little bit of change. Well, I took over the business 2 weeks ago, and I almost doubled the prices again. And they're like, dude, we can't sell this shit. I was like, no. They weren't doing any financing. So like they weren't financing, but like my customers can't afford it. I was like, no, because they don't have that much cash. We have to finance these things. Like they're like, well, we can finance it. In the last 2 weeks, all of a sudden we got financing, and they're selling these projects. They're like, you could charge this much? I'm like, yeah, because no one has $10,000 laying around, $15,000, $20,000 laying around. Now we finance it, and it's crazy because now they're like, all of a sudden they're like, we can't make any money to, oh shit, we're going to make a lot of money. And it's crazy seeing the light bulb go off in these people's heads. So you deal with contractors all over the country, obviously with Zoom Drain franchises and stuff. Are most of the people that are buying your franchises, are they current plumbing companies, or are they just people hey, I'm looking for a franchise to buy?
Yeah, well, it's both, and I'll tell you a little bit about the evolution. But going back to like the previous question, just to wrap that up, my experience with Frank Blau put me firmly in this skill set that I figured out how to read and use financial reports under Frank's tutelage. And then just like, it was like being born again. How do I not know this? I am a college educated woman. I've been in, how do I not know? I was preaching. And so I built my career really on helping mom and pop shops figure out their asset from their elbow. I wrote a few books. Where did the money go? How much should I charge? Weekend biz plan, bare bones biz plan. Just the idea of like, here's some basics to put into place. I am not a master. I am a generalist, but the 2 areas that I have some expertise in are on the financials. Now, you know how it is when you get bigger. Now we have investors and we have spreadsheets and all. It still comes down to profits and cash. Every day, profits and cash is how you add value to a business. It's where your wealth is going to come from. It's where your bonuses and the money to invest in another business. All of it comes down to profits and take it in cash. And so those basics have served me my whole career. I had a stint with Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber. Here's how you get the title of president. You're the first one in. You're the first one
That's
in. I was the first employee at Benjamin Franklin. So I said, I'm the president. And was I just like career advice to the sisters, just say yes, even if you're unqualified. If it's something you want to do, I mean, how many times have you been in over your head, Victor?
I just pretend. So I'm still pretending every day that I know what I'm doing. So it's pretty much every day I'm in over my head. But you just got to
Every
act like
day.
you belong.
Act like you belong, act as if. And it's this emperor's new clothes thing. Like, nobody has it all figured out. Jim Abrams, and this is my connection with Leland Smith, these guys are old school and they know each other. And Jim Abrams is the one who he taught me these basics. He said, on the day we sell this company for 100 million, they ended up selling it for twice that, when they were sold to Direct Energy and then Authority Brands. I mean, I'm really proud of my little piece of history as part of that entity. But he said, on the day we sell it for 100 million, there's going to be a dozen things deeply wrong with it. Like, so get over it. It's never perfect. It's never done, but does it generate profits and cash is really, this guiding light. And that had a big impact on my philosophy and on my practices. But over and over again, I have just made friends. I am someone who is friendly. I'll make friends. I'll call somebody up. I'll call you up. I'll ask questions. I like to get in front of a room and hear what other people are saying, because then I'll stay and listen to the other speakers. Like I've been to hundreds of shops. I've talked to thousands of contractors. So overall, I just keep absorbing things. So I listen, I document, I disseminate, and I redo it over and over and over. But I've never actually turned a wrench. Right? I'm just the one who's going to facilitate the growth of this company. And that's where you find a very valuable career arc.
Hey guys, I hope you guys are enjoying the Service Rocket podcast. This is your host, Victor Rancour. Exciting news, we had some tickets open up for the Service Rocket Growth Summit. It's October 20th through 22nd at Resort World Las Vegas. You're going to want to be there. We have some of the best owners, operators, trainers, and motivators in the country all in one place coming together to help you guys grow your business, grow your sales, and hopefully grow in life. So if you haven't got a chance yet, go to servicerocketnetwork.com. Go ahead and get signed up today. Cannot wait to see you guys in Vegas.
I think it's, a lot of times contractors, they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. They don't want to ask questions. And there's so many good people. Because I remember when I first started, I was real nervous to ask people, or really nervous to go learn from other people. And also had an ego, like I didn't need to go learn from other people. I know best, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you realize how many great people are in the trades and how many great people that have already done it. They're like, hey, dude, I don't want you to go through the pain that I went through. And I think I have that conversation a lot. There's like, I had he's now a partner of mine. And I had a conversation with him last year and I said, look, dude, you're going to be out of business in a year if you don't fix this. And I went over his financials and I'm like, this is what's going to happen. No, I got it figured out. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I said, okay, cool. I'm going to see you next year, but I already know you're going to be in a bad position. And he didn't want to tell anybody, didn't want to talk about it. Finally, he calls me like a month ago and he's like, hey, this is what's going on. I'm like, dude, you're like almost out of business. Like you got to fix this like you have to, this light switch has to go off. So talk about that too. So like, obviously there's a lot of things that people can tell you, right? Like, hey, I'm doing this, this, and this. How are you able to absorb it and then obviously implement it in your business? So obviously there's, a lot of people could talk, right? Like even at my event, people are going to talk on stage and tell you all this wonderful shit, but then you go back home and you don't implement anything. So how do you make implementation part of what you do?
Oh, this is such a good conversation. I just love you. All right. So, the way we're growing, I'm going to dovetail it with our last question too. So the way we're growing our franchise, the way we originally started is I called my friends. So I called Ray Grimaud, Ray the plumber on Long Island. I had worked with him as a consultant. I absolutely adore him. I said, I'm starting this new concept. And he's like, I'm in, I want to do it. So he comes on board. So he's a contractor doing plumbing and heating, and he adds up, we call it plus play. He adds Zoom Drain as another department, another business, another vertical, and he's part of the team. And our original franchisee, Sam Marciso, up in New England, was our second one, and they're tracking 6 million in sales this year, and just like going like this. So excited for them. So these guys, the original Zoom franchise partners, Jim Crenity was a consulting client of me and Al Levy, who was our original partner as we got started. And I got my friends together, and Jim had a very franchisable business. So we decided to take Zoom Drain. He already had the name. He already had the systems. Al was already working with him. So we got the systems really tight there. And then we attracted people who were also doing contracting. Now we've expanded to the point where, just like you will with your service techs, you need some experienced guys for safety, so you don't hurt yourself, so that you can ease into this. And there is an advantage to having people who know nothing about your industry, like our service technicians. So the scalability of Zoom Drain is based on never evers coming to Zoom Drain, and we'll teach them how to be drain techs, right? So the same with our franchises. We have really valuable experienced contractors in our group, and the class of 2022 are not contractors, but they come from really interesting backgrounds, but they don't, I said to someone, so they don't know better. And one of my franchisees says, no, they don't know worse. That's what we don't want to do, is we don't know worse. So someone who comes, like one of our franchisees has a very robust Amazon delivery service business. He knows logistics, he knows trucks, he's got 100 million trucks over there. So he's a guy whose skill set is really going to be of service to us, but he doesn't know drain, so he's going to do it the Zoom Drain way. So now we're with our franchises, we're capitalizing on great people with interesting skill sets, bringing them to the party. As Stephen Covey says, run with your strengths and organize to overcome your weaknesses. Like, I'm not looking to add areas that I'm weak at. I'm in my 60s. I'm like baked. What I can do is figure out who's better than me in all of these areas and coordinate and collaborate. Right before we got on, one of the things you and I were talking about is, like, you're really gotten to be a big company. You're probably in the 0.001% of contractors with, operating in 14 states, 4 locations just in California, acquiring companies. When we did a survey once upon a time at one of the magazines I worked with, you fill out the little card, how many people are in your team, right? So they give you the free subscription. This is why they do it, so they can get some data about the industry. And 80%, what we found out at the time, 80% of all home service and commercial service contractors were 3 or fewer trucks. 80% of them were one-man bands. Highly fragmented industry to this day. And so to get to the 4th truck, you're in the 20 percentile. 5th truck, you're like 5 percentile. So what does that mean? One is, most people I talk to have dreams of growing big companies, but they don't do it. So why not? One is that they don't understand the money. They don't understand that you have to price now for mistakes you're going to make later. That they don't get priced right. I think there's no overcoming that. And that's thanks to Frank and my partners. Then the other thing, and this is thanks to Al and all the other great mentors I've had, dozens and dozens of people who've mentored me. It's the systems, because you have to be willing to not get in the truck. You have, even if you know how to do it, you have to get out of the truck. And that's so hard. I know that's a really common topic on podcasts and on stage.
It's still difficult for me. Like, obviously on my background, like, I was a technician, I was a sales guy, like, and now I run this business, and I'm like, it's hard for me, like, even now, like, to not just go get in the truck, because I know no matter how much I train my guys, there's never going to be a better sales guy than me in my organization. I hope so. One day I hope I have one, but I just feel like it's so hard for me. And I feel like a lot of guys don't realize it. Like, a lot of business owners, they'll get out of their truck, but when shit gets a little sideways or something weird, they jump back in their truck and they think they're going to go save everything. But that actually sets your business back even farther, right? Because what happens is, now you go run the call. Guess what happens to your top sales guy? If you go sell a call and he doesn't sell one today, what do you think happens to that guy? He gets pissed. Him. You robbed him. He stole my money. He took the easy call, gave me the shitty ones, and now I don't make any money for my family today. And that's the conversation I have with a lot of people. I said, look, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go run calls today. I'm like, you can't. I said, no matter what, you got to fix whatever the process is that's broken, because if you keep going and run those calls, all it's going to keep going inside your guys' head is like, this guy is taking the calls that are mine, that should have been my money. You're going to mess him up for the next couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden your business is going to go worse. So good. It is difficult.
And this though, but now if I did have the skill set that you have, and my partner Jim is like that too. He's very good at everything he does. He's super detail oriented, former military guy, like he's got everything. He observes everything. So it is painful. You go in the truck and you see the missed opportunities and you see this, and you don't want to jump in, but you riding along is so powerful. Like, imagine if you pick a service tech today and you go for a ride along, Victor, what's the first thing he's going to mention when he gets home tonight? Guess what?
That I went with the boss. Yeah.
I went with the boss. And what is the person waiting for him at home going to say?
That's how did it go? They're going to ask, did you learn anything? Right. That's
Are
kind of
you
the
in
conversation.
trouble?
Are
Are
you
you
in
in
trouble? Eh?
Are you in trouble? Like it happens so infrequently, and it's so often associated with some bad news that we hear from the boss. That a lot of times the next question is, why? Did you do something wrong? Are you in trouble? What's happening? So like just even consider that dynamic. I like that you said the opposite because you probably have a good culture cooking to even go in
Yeah.
that direction with your thoughts. We want it to be a cool thing. Like if you or I go on a ride along, it's how can I help? What rocks are in the road? What do you need? What's the one thing I could share with you today that might make your life easy and more profitable? Like, what can we do to help you today? Is really what we want to have happen. And for me, it's been humbling sometimes to ride along. I'll say, what do you hate about what we ask you to do? Well, you have to enter this here and this here and this here. Why don't you just combine it? And you just see these really obviously dumb operational things that we're asking them to do that you're like, I'm sorry, let me get rid of that. Or here's
Yeah.
why we have to do it, at least for now, till Service Titan can help us do something better.
Yeah, and a lot of times you have that conversation because you're out there, you don't realize it, right? Like you don't like even for me, like I didn't realize how repetitive our contracts were, our paperwork. So every time they sold a job, we were doing this,
Exactly.
this, and it was all completely repetitive. And they're like, dude, it takes me an extra 45 minutes, and that 45 minutes I could be out making more money. So little stuff like that you can pick up doing ride-alongs, or maybe your employees don't understand the why behind why you do things, right? Why do we do our process this way and not this way?
So
And no
good.
matter how much, you can't hold their hands the entire day. So when they get out there, they might do the process a little bit, but they might skip the little bit that makes that cake, right? And all of a sudden you go out there and they're like, oh, I get it now. I see why you're asking that question there. And now I can see what it did with that customer. And it could just flip that switch or just reset them. Because in the HVAC industry, like plumbing is pretty much year round, right? HVAC, we have summertime is like we make our lion's share. That's the easiest time in the world to sell. A drunken monkey can sell in the summer. So what happens like this, as soon as it starts cooling off, those guys that might have had great processes in April and May, their processes went to shit for 3 months because everything was so easy to sell. All of a sudden come fall, it's hard to sell again because they're skipping steps in the process. They're not asking the right questions. It's not 100 degrees outside. So they're like, then they start freaking out like, oh, I'm getting all the bad calls. It's like, no, you just forgot the process. And that's something like, so usually like end of September, October is when we do a lot of training, a lot of ride-alongs training and stuff like that, just to get the guys' mindsets right. Because in HVAC, we have like 4 months of just super easy sales, and then it becomes difficult again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so good. And what I want to underline about what you just said is even guys who use systems, who are really good, well-trained, understand it all, they can fall off the wagon. So you just have
100%.
to go back to the processes. So if you have new kids who don't have it yet, and then they start to get good, we can think that, oh, they're good forever. We don't have to pay any attention. And then that's the guy whose keys are on your desk one day and you're like, what? I thought he was happy here. How did I miss him? That it's this constant thing. I think one of the lessons that I'm relearning, because I've been here before, relearning is that our franchisees really have so much to offer each other. Our team members have so much to offer each other that the seasoned guy buddying up with the new kids buddying up together. We've had some success putting 2 newly graduated apprentices together because they feel safe not knowing it all and they can kind of help each other out. But this idea that it's not just top driven, it's organic, and that if we spend some time sharing the why, like why we're doing this, what makes your heart sing, what's the thing that gets you out of bed every day? Is it that, part of it's the competitive nature, part of it's the honor and the glory of the trades, helping a brother out, live a good life. Maybe in our case, you don't have to go to college necessarily, and you can make really great money. And here's a, recession-proof, pandemic-proof, season-proof job, that can turn into a career for you. All of these things drive us. And when you do spend some time sharing what's in your heart like that, then some of the details just get a little less thorny and the team members will figure them out for you. Like I always say, your front line knows what the problems are and knows how to fix them. Why don't you ask them? Why don't we talk to those guys and find out, well, here's a problem, or here's something I found with the workflow, or they're just smarter than me. And when I fail is when I fail to do that.
Yeah, I think that's just something that happens in a lot of organizations. It happens to me too, because obviously I'm doing a million different things. So I'll get distracted, and it's hard for me because when I get distraction, it's like anything. If you don't focus on it, then obviously the kids, if the cats, or what's the saying? What's like when the dad's away, the kids will play, or
the cat's away, the mice will play.
When the cat's away, the mice will play. And I run into that a lot because I'm trying to do so many different things. And then, I come back and it's like, fuck, I got to go try to reel it back in. No matter what processes I put in place, if there's not someone there driving it every single day, then you start having issues. And I get to that and I'm like, and I get mad and I'm like, it's not their fault. It's my fault. It's just human nature. Human nature is to do the easiest possible thing, right? Any easiest possible thing you can get away with is human nature for most people. It's not for, for self-starters, but for a lot of people, that's how it is. So I think
are you noticing people want to be noticed? Like, does it matter if I wear the uniform or not? Like, does anybody care? What's the point? And if they're not looking and they're not noticing, I might as well play my own game. What you just said reminded me too, that my partner, Jim Crinity, has a quote I really loved. I said, like, what happened to you? Because when he and I first met, he was up to here. He was burnt out. He hated his guys, like hated them. He thought they were all trying to sabotage him. There was no real culture happening. And his directive when Al and I first started working with him is, let's fix this enough that I can sell it and I want out. And then what happened as he went through the process of talking to the guys, working on the manuals with them, riding along with them, getting to know them, he said to me, it was never them. It was always me. And I no longer blame my employees for my failures. Now, what a great evolution. And now everything we do is really designed to help them find careers and maybe pass to ownership and, meaningful jobs and positions. Like, we don't want to be the executives forever. We're looking for this next tier of people to come and take our jobs. And boy, is that an exciting prospect.
And a lot of people are a lot of business owners are so scared of that, right? They're scared of their people leaving. They're scared of them going to start the business. And, I'm about to have my 5th employee leave and go start their own business. And the other 4 have been wildly successful. They're all making great money. They're growing great businesses. And I would be more proud of that than anything else. Like, the one thing, like Leland, he won't talk to me. Like, he blows me off. And I'm like, dude, like, I'll text him and say, thank you for everything, blah, blah. That's not his memo. He would rather his ex-employees just fucking burn and go away. That's just what it is. And for me, I'm like the opposite, man. I'm calling my old employees. I'm like, hey, how are you guys doing? How's business? Can I help you guys with anything? And I would rather have better competitors. I'd rather have better employees. And I wish them the best, rather than the other way where it's like, no, hell no, I want everything to myself. I'm a hoarder, right? And that's something that has always kind of stuck with me. And that's something like I want to be able to do, because I would much rather my employees leave and be a great competition than leave and be the guy that's undercutting all our jobs, just being the cheap guy or whatever it is. That's not the competition you want.
And I'm older, right? So what I've seen is this all comes full circle again. You may end up buying that company. They may end up buying you. You don't know what side of the table you'll be sitting on. And to me, it's like, why bother? I'm not saying I get along with everybody I've ever met before. And I've had some relationship challenges. Everybody has. But overall, I'm just about the love. What difference does it make? It just seems like if we just leave people with a path back, if we add love and forgiveness every day, I just do better. I don't like to have I know there's some people who are mad at me, and I get it, just for whatever happened or whoever the parting of the ways went, but that's not where you build a life or a business. For me, those are the losers.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. So we have Zoom Drain. Obviously, you guys are growing quickly, and I heard you say earlier, right? Like you guys are taking people from other walks of life, other trades, and training them how to do drains. You want to talk a little bit about that and how powerful that's been with your business?
Well, this goes back to Al Levy 101. I mean, first off, here's the best tip I can give. I do not tolerate trash talking employees. So when people say you can't find good people out there, or kids today don't know how to work, I think, well, I wouldn't work for you if I was a kid today. And I'm going to take advantage of the way you're talking about people and make a welcome home for them. So, like, first of all, start with an assumption that kids today are awesome, that people are looking for meaning, and a good job and a career perhaps and a way to support their family and buy nice things and do what they, I mean, like, let's just start from the assumption that there's great people out there. Someone will say, I can't find great people. And I'll say, there are 2 million people in your market area and you can't find 5. Do you think it's them or you? So like really take responsibility for the energy you're putting out there in terms of what your belief about mankind is, and watch your words. Watch your words and act as if, even if you think it, don't say it, because you're just putting power into that nonsense. You can't find anybody. Well, great. You could be right about that, or you could be rich. So knock it off. So start from there. Then what Al Levy did is he really impressed in me this idea that we could fight over the few trained, great, skilled guys that are out there, but they're all aging out. I heard some huge number the other day on a podcast. Someone said, how many people are dying or leaving their businesses in the trades right now because they're old? And how much work then is abandoned that we could go get, right? There's a lot of work that's being abandoned every year by people aging out or just moving on in the industry. So one, there's acquisition opportunities, and there may be great places to get a seasoned guy to come and work for you. But the scalability of your company really depends on your willingness to take 100% responsibility for training them. So that means writing the manuals, exhausting, absolutely exhausting, life-sucking work to sit down sometimes and just write or have somebody write. You know, I got a couple tips for that, to get your manuals written. 1, buy a franchise. 2, join a group or get a consultant like Al to help you with it. Like there's some work involved in getting those manuals done. We have 100 man years in our manuals. That's how much time is in our manuals. And they're great now, right?
Yeah.
So you got to get manuals because you need some curriculum to train them on. And then you assume they don't know how to use a tape measure, don't know what a channel locks is. You assume that these things are new. Now, if someone has an affinity for mechanical things, they like working on their car, they like Lego, things like that would be good to know, because that might make a technician likes working with his or her hands.
Yeah.
I would say that going back to your original thing, though, just as I'm saying it's heartbreaking to me. I think at this moment we have 1 woman technician out of all of our locations. And even the people I know who are kicking butt hiring women don't have more than 5 or 10% of their workforce as women. So we have so much work to do there, Victor. That's driving me a little crazy.
Yeah, and it's definitely, obviously I've been in the trades now for about 7 years, and I've worked with great women. I've worked with great women salespeople. I've worked with great women technicians, and it's just they don't. It comes back to the training, right? Like training them how to do it, and then also getting them to buy in on why they're doing it, because it's not an easy job, right? It's not a glamorous job going to be a plumber or being an HVAC technician and working 14-hour days sometimes, and all that stuff doesn't sound glamorous. But a lot of women want to be able to take care of their families. They want to be able to learn, and a lot of guys just have to give them the opportunity to come in the door, right? Because they belong in a lot of different positions. Like my general manager started as a call center rep, right? Well, I didn't know she was an overqualified call center rep. She had accounting background and all this other stuff. I had no idea. She applied for a call center rep position, hired her, and I got to kind of see like stuff she could kept taking on more. And now she's obviously, I brought her in as a GM with no experience being a GM. So at that point you have to understand, like, you have to train it. So a lot of times I'll still get frustrated because I'm like, you don't know that? She's like, I've never been at a fucking technician before. Like, you got to help me. And she's like, and that's a lot of it comes down to the people that are leading and being the trainers. And I get mad all the time. And I'm like, why didn't you guys do this? I'm like, they're like, we've never seen this before. We've never worked at a larger organization. We've never worked at a $20 million business. And you're trying to expect us to know this stuff. And I think as leaders, we think that everybody knows what we know. And it comes back to those manuals, right? And even for me, like, I struggle to write down how I want things done, when I want it done, things like that. And it is kicking the bucket down the road, because if you don't stop, you don't write it down, you don't document it, all it's going to be is frustration. And, I've ran into it plenty of times, and I still run into it today, because it takes a lot of time to write your stuff down, especially as an entrepreneur. You're busy all the time. hire someone like Al, hire someone to bring them in and have them write it down, and just maybe start documenting what you do every day, so someone else can take it off your plate. Because I run into the same thing still, which is embarrassing to say, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. I'll tell you, here's a really practical, very mundane tip for you. If I'm communicating something to someone and they're not writing, I stop talking. Where's your notebook? Where are you going to put that? How are you going to remember this? We're all too old to remember stuff. So like a verbal communication is merely a suggestion. No one can hold you accountable for that. So if you do want it done, it has to go on the calendar. It has to go on the notebook. It can be electronic. My latest tool is I got a Remarkable tablet now. And, so I am working on my personal discipline, the skills it takes to stay organized. You could also have someone videotape you, videotape, like that's such an old lady thing, record you. There's no tape, Ellen. Okay. Yeah. There's get your phone out and record you doing something. And then you do it and they write it and then convert it to text or, Otter's
you could do that. Yeah. Right? You can talk to text and they can transcribe it for you and do all that stuff.
Like that seems like really obvious and simple, but we bypass a lot of opportunities day in and day out to just use those tools to help us get stuff written down. And it's just discipline, right? Just the discipline to do it. So we've gone from grand picture to you got to get a notebook.
So with that, obviously, circling back to the bringing technicians in from outside the trades, obviously it's important. You have to have great tradesmen in your business already, because the blind can't lead the blind, right? Like that. If you have somebody coming in to train a new technician and that guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, it's going to be an issue. So when you guys are bringing new people in, what is your training process? How long does it take for them to come in as not knowing much to becoming a drain tech for Zoom Drain?
Well, one of the cool things about doing just drains, and I am a niche girl, I really like having a, narrow, deep path here. We start with the cables and the jetter and the locator and the camera. So basically they've got to learn 4 tools and they're all packed into our super trucks, and the trucks match the manuals and the trucks are all the same. So, setting the stage where you have the concrete tools, and then we have the abstract of the manuals. So the abstract is like written words. And if someone's a really great technician, if you run into this, they may not be a good test taker. They may have attention deficit challenges. Are you relating to this at all? I mean, I see this all the time.
So I went through service champions training. I didn't know anything about being a technician, and I pretty much failed the class. Like I was falling asleep in the class. I think they only pushed me through because I was a good communicator, but otherwise I'm like, dude, I couldn't study. I have a hard time studying. I'm actually pretty good at tests, but I suck at studying. And I remember going through the training and they're like, dude, you got to get your shit together. And I'm like, dude, this shit's so boring. I can't sit in class all day. Let me go in the field and learn. And I think that's a lot of people in the trades is like, dude, the class stuff is mundane and it's not exciting and it's really hard for them to learn that way. Is there a lot of your stuff in the field, or are you guys mostly in the classroom when you're doing your training?
Well, ideally it would be as a teacher, you want to present information from an auditory standpoint, a visual standpoint, and then hands-on kinetic. So you're also working with your hands. So we want to do all of that. So there are going to be manuals that you read, and sometimes you read aloud. It's also good because you can get a read on whether or not that guy is functionally literate or literate in English. These are things we should pay attention to. Are we expecting them to read stuff and they don't really know how to read very well? That's something that we could help with and make your training accessible to people who might need help with English as a second language, or just with whatever learning challenges that they might have. So there is the manuals, but right now we have, we like to build out a training center, although you could use your own plumbing or your mom's plumbing, or, you can go to someone's house or your commercial clients and say, hey, we're going to train at your place today. You'll get a clean grease trap and we get to train on real equipment. So how's that? So, things like that. And then on the job training is usually no training. On-the-job training is usually somebody watching someone else for 20 years, and that is not very effective unless you leverage that on-the-job training with a checklist and an assignment. Okay, today you're going to do a Sloan valve on the urinal.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm going to ask you about it when you get back. Here's the checklist. Let him do it. You watch unless he's going to hurt himself. Like, you get some direction and leverage the moments that you have on the job training, then you're going to be able to escalate that training. But I tell you, this has really got our attention. That's why we have Amy Hunt is our new training and education director. She's going to be focusing on getting our content in more digestible form. And that's going to be through learning management software. There's artificial intelligence that's helping us. Our connection with Service Titan is going to deepen over the upcoming months and years, I hope. And so I want to use all these cool digital tools we have to make it easier. Video, like, why don't we have lined up video for absolutely everything we expect our guys to do? Short snippets, really, because that's the attention span we're dealing with.
Yeah, no, and I get it. And that's obviously what we built with my training app, is like I wanted to make it engaging and make it easy, so like my guys can go watch the videos at home and be able to know exactly how I want to call RAN, how to overcome objections, how to communicate to customers, how to how to be a presentable technician, right? And I think that's a lot of the stuff that I wish I would have known. Like, when I got it, we had a little bit of classroom training, right? And then they said, here, go out there and figure it out. And, figuring it out takes time, right? Like, trying to figure out, go through the motions, and you're like, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. You got to learn. So we're trying to figure out, that's why we've been able to scale my business quickly. So I'm able to take those technicians and try to get them out in the field quicker. The quicker they go make me money. So like, I have guys, that I met a couple guys at like a restaurant one night, right? And I met him in a restaurant, started talking to the guy, said, I do HVAC and I own an HVAC company, blah, blah, blah. He's like, okay, cool. I said, come on. I said, it was Sunday. I said, show up tomorrow morning and I'm going to get you, we'll interview you. We'll have a conversation. He shows up the next day and he thought I was bullshitting. He didn't know who I was. Right. And he shows up and he's like, well, I'm like, I want you to become a technician. He seemed like a good communicator, knew nothing about HVAC. And within, 6 weeks, he's out in the field. And now in the last month, he made over I want to say he made $25,000 as a technician last month. He's only been in the field for 5 months. And
that's a good story.
Yeah. And he's not the only one. I have like probably 3, 4, 5, 6, probably 7 guys at this point. And most of on my technician side has never worked anywhere else. And the power of that is that they don't know any bad habits. They don't know any other way to do things, but the way that we do it. And every time I brought a technician from another company in, their habits were so messed up that we were trying to fix them all the time and it didn't work. So now we literally take almost every one of our technicians has to go, come through our training program, has to come through. I prefer they've never even gone to trade school, because I feel like the trade schools nowadays are doing so much disservice to these technicians. They're taking their money. They're not really teaching them how to even be good on their job. They get out of trade school. They got a $15,000 debt. They don't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hire them. And all of a sudden they tell them they're going to get hired. I'm like, dude, I can pay you minimum wage. That's what I can pay you, because that's the skill set you have right now. And they're not happy, right? So, if you guys are looking at trade schools, make sure that they actually have a proven track record, which I don't know any of them that really do, about getting guys actually prepared to do the job. And which I think is unfair to what's going on. But, for me, we have a training facility here in California. We train them from scratch. We teach them everything they need to know. And then we give them an opportunity to make more money than they've ever made. And that's how we've been able to scale. And that's how we've been able to control the product. Because people are like, how could you be one of the most expensive on the market, but you continuously get 5-star reviews every single day? Like, we don't ever really get bad reviews. It's because we train it the right way. We bring value. We teach processes that makes a customer feel good about making a decision.
So good. That's really inspiring. I knew when we got on the phone today that you were going to inspire me, and you always do. I mean, I love that you've been able to grow that fast. You take so many objections off the table. It doesn't take 30 years to grow a big company. And if you've taken 30 years and now you see that you want to do something different, the point of power is always now. It doesn't mean you can't, take a steep growth curve from this hot minute, which if that's what you want, then, I think, Victor, your story is encouraging. Thank you.
And I try to help as many people. Like, obviously, sometimes it just takes enough. Sometimes they have to get beaten down enough to finally realize, like, hey, enough is enough, and I gotta change, right? And if I can get one person to stop doing what they're doing, because they keep going to the same watering hole every day, and there's no water left in that shit, and they're getting tired, they're burnt out. And even the company I just acquired, the guy's like, dude, I'm at my wit's end, right? And now I made him a partner. So I rolled him into Absolute Airflow. And now all of a sudden he's like, holy shit, this is different. Like, I wish I'd been doing this for the last, 20 years. We wouldn't be where I'm like, yeah, this is the same thing I preach to people every day. Stop doing what you're doing, because if it's not working, stop it. Like, just do not do it anymore. Take that shit out back and shoot it in the head. Like, we're done. We don't do this. And like, I had to have the conversation with his dispatchers day one. I'm like, they were about to go do a dishwasher install. And I'm like, we don't do dishwasher installs anymore. You go ahead. We'll have a referral partner. They can go install dishwashers. They're like, why? And I'm like, what are we going to get out of that? $500. Then we scratch a floor. How much money do we make? Or we do this. How much money do we make? Oh, well, I didn't think about that. I'm like, have you guys scratched any floors? They're like, yeah, we have. And I'm like, did you make any money, or did you lose a bunch of money? It's like, we lost money. Stop doing shit that doesn't make money. I had a guy, his wife heard me on a podcast I was on about 2 weeks ago. And he's a plumber in, I want to say he's in Pennsylvania, right? A plumber in Pennsylvania, and husband and wife running the show. It's him and one other technician. They're not making the money. They want to grow. The wife wants to grow. Well, the wife reached out to me. She found me somehow. She hunted me down. She said, hey, I got to get on the phone call with you. We started talking to him, and the same thing. She's like, I want to make money. We keep doing the same shit over and over. What do we got to do? And I was like, okay, what jobs do you do? They're like, we do this, this, and this. I'm like, do any of those make you any money? They're like, well, they get us more customers. I don't give a shit how many customers you have. Is it making you money? If it doesn't make money, stop fucking doing it. And a lot of guys just have a hard time. They want to take every single call and every customer and everybody, and you just can't do it.
Well, along those lines too, I get those phone calls as well. And I was that woman, right? I was married to a plumber, and we were at odds with each other. And I think in the early days, we did a lot of damage to our relationship. Now I'm still married. 38 years I've been married to Hot Rod. But at first, we did so much damage that I don't think we would have ever recovered and so we couldn't work together. Like, the scars were there. People do things to people they love they would never do to an employee or a stranger or anything else, right? There's a lot of those dysfunctional family businesses out there. And my encouragement is, you don't have to work together. We decided not to work together. I had visions of a big company, and you can see I'm living my dream. My husband has no interest in this. And so what was happening, and this is often the case, is I wanted my husband to be different. Is that going to go anywhere? Are you going to have a good relationship if that's what you're after? I wish you were different. I mean, now I look at it and I realize that was just a path that was going to break us up. So if you guys aren't on the same page, either father, son, or husband, wife, or brothers, like, you can go. I know that sounds awful in the moment, but it was the best thing for us, because we allowed each other to be who we wanted to be, to do what we wanted to do. And that's why we're still together. So like, I totally feel that. And I know that right now, it seems like, why did we even fuss about it? It was obvious. But at the time, it was very emotional and a really hard moment for us.
It's hard to pull the Band-Aid, right? Because there is that relationship there. And a lot of times it's, father, son, or brother and brother, right? And the same thing. And the same thing, like the company I just partnered with, the one brother, he's so used to the chuck in the truck stuff. And his brother's like, I got big dreams. I want to do this. I'm seeing all these other guys grow these big businesses. And it was a big fight all the time. And now I ended up keeping them both on. And both are happy now. One gets to just go be the technician. The other one's helping me grow this business, and he's excited to see what we can do, right? And they didn't have to split up the business. They both had to stop having control. And once they realized they'd stop having control,
that's a nice option. That's a really nice option. Yeah, and Mary Jean Anderson. Do you know her? Do you know her in Anderson,
San Diego?
She's in San Diego, and I did a podcast with her for PHCP Pros Behind the Wall. It's so good. She's so interesting. I've known her forever. And I don't want to tell her story. She's the one to tell it. But her life was really a series of who's going to be in charge, and back and forth, and this and that, and the K-Spears too, Radiant Plumbing in Austin. Low ego, big mission with those two. So husband-wife team who are willing to step into CEO and get out of CEO, and the other one would step in. And then they had another person in, like, they were willing. Small ego, big mission is a great way to run your business. Like, who's the best person for the job at this point in your career is a conversation to have in any business, particularly in a family business.
Oh, 100%. Well, Ellen, we're kind of getting to running out of time here. I mean, you can always talk all day long. Yeah, we
Thank
could talk
you.
all day long, but I am excited though. Ellen is going to be speaking at the Service Rocket Growth Summit in October. She's going to be part of one of our
Woo!
women's panel where we're trying to bring up, women in the industry a little bit different. So I'm not going to be talking about what it's like to be a woman in the industry. We're going to talk about the things that you guys are doing to impact the industry and how we think going forward, how we can continue to grow. And we hope that it can inspire more women to step into executive roles, leadership roles, technician roles, stuff like that is what my goal of this whole thing is. So I'm excited to see you in October. It's the first time we're going to meet in person. So
I
it's going to be pretty
know.
exciting.
Well,
If you
I'm
guys
a
have,
big fan. So I'm president of the Victor Rancour fan club. So just so you know.
So if anybody's listening to this and they said, man, I really am interested in what it would take to become a Zoom Drain partner, own a Zoom Drain franchise. Where do they go? How do they have that conversation? Can you give a little detail on that?
Absolutely. So zoomdrainfranchise.com. Zoomdrainfranchise.com is a great place to go. You put your name and email address in there, and then you'll be on our list and you'll reach out to them. Or you can email me, ellen.rohr@zoomdrain.com. Ellen.rohr, ROHR, @zoomdrain.com.
Awesome. And if you guys haven't reached out, even if you guys just have questions, conversation, Ellen is someone that you can just reach out, have that conversation, see if it's a good fit, or maybe she could even give you some direction. She's great at that. So, obviously I've had multiple conversations with her. It's always been, I think I feel like every time I leave a conversation, I learn a little bit more.
Me too for you.
That's what
Me
this
too
is
for
all
you.
about. Well, Ellen, I'm excited. I'm excited for October. I'm excited to see what Zoom Drain's doing. I know I've seen you guys as trucks now in California all the time. I see them driving up and down the freeway. The funny thing is the first time I saw it, I'm like, that's got to be a Dan Antonelli truck. I didn't know at first, but I'm like, I called Dan. I'm like, hey, who's this? He's like, oh, that's a franchise. And I'm like, I thought it was just a new a company had rebranded in my area. So the trucks stand out. It seems like everybody that, does business with you guys is really happy. So reach out to Ellen if you're interested in partnering or creating a Zoom Drain franchise. It's a great opportunity to make some money for you and your family. Ellen, is a pleasure. I can't wait to see you
Always.
soon. And we're going to talk offline a little bit about some other stuff. So thank you guys for
Yay,
tuning in. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Service Rocket podcast episode number 6. We have an exciting guest on. We just got done mentioning his name. Dan Antonelli is going to be on episode number 7, coming out next week, talking about his new book from Kick Charge Creative. He's also going to be speaking at the Service Rocket Growth Summit. If you haven't got your tickets yet, go to servicerocketnetwork.com. Get signed up today, and we cannot wait to see you guys in October. See ya.